What do you think so far?
It's not what I was expecting.
What were you expecting?
I don't know, but not good.
So what is it like?
It's just really, everything's really close together. There's no like personal space. There's no space anywhere.
Upon arrival, we observed how the U.S. had its hands in Guatemala, from aid to clothing to food and politics. The tolls of globalization and U.S. intervention were hard to miss.
Kids of the families who went missing during the Civil War. They come out once a year to celebrate their families, and we're going to watch them celebrate using music.
In fact, since 1954, the U.S. has been intruding into Guatemalan culture. In 1954, the United States supported a CIA-backed military coup that invaded Guatemala, overthrew the democratically elected president, Arbenz, and installed a military dictator, Castillo Armas. During 1954 to 55, the largest United States corporation in Guatemala, the United Fruit Company, carried out a campaign claiming that Guatemala's policy of land distribution and repatriation was a consequence of Soviet influence in the hemisphere. This claim convinced the United States and its State Department that Guatemala was a threat to its national security, since it was a component of communism. The outcome of this was United States intervention in Guatemala in 1954. The intervention was how the United States chose to protect their domestic, economic, and political interests. The intervention resulted in a Guatemalan civil war that took place between the years of 1960 to 1966. With Armas in power, hundreds of Guatemalans were massacred. Between 1954 and 1990, human rights groups estimate military regimes murdered more than 100,000 civilians. Movimiento Nacional de Derechos Humanos, a Guatemalan-operated organization working to bring justice to those who have experienced inhumane violations of their rights.
And this was a policy that the government carried out in the 1980s to disappear people that were leaders.
Y hacer la prueba, o es decir, tener pruebas de que eso sucedía, es muy difícil ante los tribunales, y es lo que los tribunales exigen muchas veces.
And to have proof or evidence to bring before these tribunals is very difficult, and that is what they demand.
En la guerra hubieron alrededor de 5,000 niños desaparecidos.
During the war, there were around 5,000 children that were disappeared.
Fue como el botín de guerra, ¿verdad? Había que venderlos porque daban más dinero vendiéndolos y dándolos en adopción.
It was like a war treasure chest because you could sell them into adoption. You could make money by selling these children into adoption.
Personas se informen, de que las personas tengan un criterio de qué hacer ahorita que viene el periodo para votar.
And now, since we're in the time of the political campaigns for the presidency of the country, we're working hard to help people have the information that they need to make decisions about who to vote for. And there is, again, an increase in human rights violations because of this, because people don't want that kind of education going on.
También les damos asistencia inmediata para que puedan ellos ver sus mecanismos de haga tal cosa para que funcione.
And so we never lose the hope that one day we will be able to see these cases brought to justice, but it can only happen if we take an active role in demanding that the institutions function and that we call them up.
FEMDEGUA, a Guatemalan-operated organization formed by the loved ones of the disappeared, to seek justice against those responsible for carrying out the scorched earth policy.
That there is no political will or even human will to look to come to the causes of what happened with our disappeared, that there is no efforts being made to find out. There's nobody coming forward and saying I'm responsible or taking responsibility to say, or saying this is who did it, this is what happened. Nobody is doing that.
Tengan que vivir lo que a nosotros nos ha tocado vivir.
And maybe I myself will not see the fruit of this struggle that we're carrying out, but we do it for, our children and our grandchildren, so that they never have to live through the kind of things that we had to live through.
Más importante armamento que ahora den también para la reparación de todas las familias.
So for us, your presence here is very important, because it's important for us that you take back and raise the consciousness of the people in the United States about what's happened here and what is happening here. And, as the government of the United States, which has been responsible for the kidnapping and disappearance of, probably thousands of people, it would be really great if you all could work so that the United States government pressured the government here to clear or to bring to justice these cases that we're working on, just as they provided arms before. If they could provide this kind of pressure now, that would be a great way of kind of making up for what happened here.
Fundación de Antropología Forense de Guatemala, a group of forensic anthropologists providing evidence of the scorched earth policy's fatalities. Such proof contributes to carrying out justice for Guatemalan civil rights.
There were over 200,000 people killed in the war, and as Alejandra said, a little more than 4,000 have been recuperated. So you can imagine the amount of people that still haven't been, their bodies haven't been found. And in terms of making the complaint or denouncing, a lot of the people have died, or they don't remember exactly where it happened, or the land has changed in 20, 25 or so years, because most of the massacres happened in the 80s, and there's still a lot of fear about coming out and making up.
The men and women of the National Human Rights Movement and the families of the disappeared are a special bunch of courageous Guatemalans. Fear paralyzes many Guatemalans from rising above their oppression or seeking justice for such human rights violations. What happened to the displaced, to the survivors of the scorched earth policy? We saw in Guatemala City that some had to live and work on a 35-acre garbage dump in order to eat, clothe, and shelter themselves. Camino Seguro, a community of foreign volunteers committed to providing hope and assistance to children and families working in the Guatemala City garbage dump. The primary focus of Safe Passage is to combat poverty through education.
That's where our need comes out of being a safe passage, to really give them, number one, a place that's safe and secure and consistent, as well as being able to provide, the basic fundamental needs for them of health and food and being clothed, and really having those pieces in mind before you can begin to remove the barriers for them to even be able to receive an education. So it's often the case when volunteers are working within our facilities that have improved incredibly over the years and are bright and well ventilated, and we put a lot of thought into the structure of those buildings. That they think, these kids look absolutely fine. They have smiles on their faces, and they don't seem any different from any other child. But the reality is, when you walk into their home, it's just a world away from what we're used to, and they're still sleeping on dirt floors, and 13 people in a tiny little room sharing one or two beds.
After leaving Safe Passage and on our way to the mission at San Lucas Toliman, we wondered, are organizations fueled by U.S. citizens good or bad? We wondered about sustainability and solidarity. Were U.S. organizations in Guatemala promoting or demoting these issues for Guatemalans? Father Gregory Schaefer has been the head of the mission at San Lucas Toliman for 43 years. Interested volunteers come from all over to work on various specific manual labor tasks.
USA, Canada, and different parts of Europe were asked to help priests in Roman Catholic parishes here in Central America and South America. And that request got very strong in the early 60s. And responding to that, the bishop that I was ordained by and who was my boss was basically looking to help out.
As Father Greg stated, his bishop requested that he answer the plea for assistance in Guatemala in 1964. How much longer will there be a need in Guatemala for Father Greg and others like him? We don't know the answer. What we do know is that as global citizens, we must work together in solidarity towards sustainability.
You all are here and that you can take back these stories and talk about what happened here, and that it's not the people of the United States, it's the governments. It's the governments that train and arm. And since 1954, we've been suffering this persecution and we've been suffering this repression. And you all can be the spokespeople. You all can be the messengers to go back and say, this is what happened in Guatemala, and this is what our government, the United States government participation in that was.